All
Yeah.
right. So plenty of people. So I'm obviously a lender. I lend private money. I lend agency debt. A lot of new flippers reach out to me, and one of my standard questions is, how many times have you done this, and who's the general contractor you're using? And one of the most common answers is, I'm not using a GC. And I always pucker up a bit when somebody's not using a GC. I pucker up, thinking, and not to knock these new flippers. Full disclosure, I've done stuff without using a GC, and I've paid the price. Right, I've been the general contractor, and I've paid the price, and that's for another discussion. Let me ask you this: to GC or not to GC? Why would somebody go get their general contracting license? It's a lot of work. Why would you even do that?
Well, I have a commercial construction GC license in Denver, so like anything up to 6 stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the majority of that work while I still was a superintendent for Pinkard Construction, because they wanted multiple people in the organization to have the supervisor status card, because you don't have to, you can be a licensed GC and not know what you're doing if you hire somebody that knows what they're doing. And so for a lot of these a lot of bigger GC companies will have several employees that have their supervisor certificate. So I already had done the hard part before I even got into this. So for me, there was no question of to GC or not to GC. Like, that was what I brought to the table. That was already my skill set coming into it.
I mean, that is a huge skill set, because you do want to pull permits, right? You do want to do this right. And when you cut these corners, the people that I've seen get in trouble are the people that have cut too many corners, right? And when I say in trouble, I mean, maybe they get work done, they don't pull permits, it doesn't work. The electrician goes and crawls into a bottle somewhere. Now you've got electrical that doesn't work. Now you've got to get another electrician to come in and fix it. And that electrician goes, this is done wrong. This is dangerous. This is going to burn the place down. I'm going to have to redo this. And oh, by the way, I'm going to actually pull permits, and we're going to do it right. And so the person that's guilty of that is me, right? I did this many, many years ago, and thank God that electrician actually screwed me. It forced me to do it right. Right. And I was tempted. I was trying to cut corners. I was tempted to cut corners, and I did, and I got punished for it. And I'm so glad, because that's a safety hazard. I mean, you do stuff like this wrong and somebody dies, a house catches on fire, there's plenty of liability, right? I mean, I'm kind of I'm preaching to the choir here, but yeah, what do you think?
I think you'd be crazy to have somebody do electric work, of all trades too, electric work. That's not a licensed electrician. But the other side of that coin is the first person. So let's say you buy a house and the basement was finished so like say it's a house built in 1970 and the basement got finished in 1980, and it was a homeowner that did it, and they didn't pull permits, and it was in the city of Denver. All right, so now you buy the house and you want to, do some things that require permits. The first person to do the right thing is the first person that gets screwed for all of the stuff that was done the wrong way beforehand, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that would be one of the times where it might be prudent to not pull a permit for interior work. Say you were going to move a wall and you knew what you were doing and you're licensed GC and you do everything per code, say on the main floor, but the whole basement was finished back in 1980 by somebody else. So now if you pull a permit, the inspector comes in to look at your wall that you moved, and they see that the basement is finished, but public record shows it's not. Now you're ripping all the drywall down, you're insulating all the walls on your basement that you didn't do any work on. You were going to paint and carpet your basement, but now you're ripping the entire basement out. You're rewiring the whole basement. You're pretty much you're moving backwards.
Yeah.
To square one.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only situation where you should make a real informed decision about how you want to tackle that, right? You either need to buy it at the right price, that you're going into it fully expecting to gut that basement, and that's part of your game plan, or you need to go into it knowing you're going to make that completely safe and have a licensed electrician go through everything in the basement. You're going to bring everything to code up to a reasonable amount of work without maybe ripping all the drywall out and re-insulating your whole basement.
Yeah.
So that's the one caveat where maybe you think twice about pulling a permit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In the example I was talking about, I mean, that cost me double essentially. And I had a licensed electrician, but he didn't pull permits. And then he bounced which happens, right? Which is another reason I think you would want a GC if you're a flipper, because, or at least to employ one, right? Because if I'm a guy who does, if I'm a hobbyist and I do one deal a year, right? And you do 25, right? You've got your sub pool. I've got my sub pool, if you could even call it that.
Right. Yeah.
And who are they going to call back, right? Who are they going to show loyalty? I'm talking about the subs now, the electrical, the plumbing, the drywall, the painters, on and on and on. They don't care about me. They want to make sure you're happy, because you're the guy who's going to send them to the next job and the next job and the next job. They can take one look at me and go, oh, he's a standard homeowner. He's redoing his kitchen once. Like, I'm last on their list to call back. And I could go on and on, but I'll throw a few more things of the reasons I like hiring real general contractors. They've been around the block enough. They're putting their license on the line when they do something, right? And so safety matters, and the quality of the work matters. And the fact that they've vetted those subs, right? I mean, they've gone through a dozen subs and they know, hey, I'm going to stay away from this guy because, every other year he ends up in the bottle in Mexico. And this guy just is steady as a rock, right? And